Let's dive into the Hiberknitting season with a new West Knits book. So as you've been working on your mystery shawls this autumn, I've been putting the finishing touches on my newest print book called Hiberknitting 3. So let's dive in and have a little story time and see the designs from this book and some yarn ideas, and I can tell you a little bit about the process of making this collection and get you inspired for your winter Hiberknitting season. This third edition is a softcover book, just like my Hiberknitting 1 and Hiberknitting 2, and Hiberknitting 3 has 8 designs in it. So I'm wearing a couple of the designs, the Aurora Cabin Shawl and the Painting Columns sweater. So there's a lot of different types of designs. You're going to see sweaters, socks, a jacket, hats, shawl, scarf, so a whole outfit so you can be covered from head to toe and stay warm as you knit all winter. So Hiberknitting 3, 8 designs. There's a lot of fun images in the front. I worked together again with Stefan Gunesh, who's a really amazing collage artist, and I love how he clipped and edited little close-up bits of my knitted fabrics in amongst all the abstract, colorful shapes. So the idea of this Hiberknitting book is to welcome you into that fantasy world of I don't have to do anything all winter but knit all day, every day. Don't have to leave the house. Put the fireplace on. I don't own a fireplace, but I can imagine, go into that fantasy world of just cozy winter knitting. So you're going to see a lot of thicker DK and worsted weight projects in this book, and there's one fingering weight shawl. So let's start off with the Aurora Cabin Shawl. This is the first piece I designed for the book, and it was just so much fun because it has this really traveling intricate slip stitch pattern. So I developed this slip stitch pattern and applied 5 colors to it, and I love the finished result of those slips and those little streaks of color and the speckles being carried across in that slip stitch section. So I'm wearing a custom color palette that Life in the Long Grass dyed. So the beginning of this project was coming up with the stitch pattern, and then we wanted to do some fun kits for the Hiberknitalong. So on November 4th, we have all these Hiberknitalong kits with the yarn and goodies. You'll get a candle and the book and everything in the kits. So there's 2 custom color palettes, and this was the inspiration for the whole book project, was to make this Aurora Borealis inspired palette and this cozy, rustic, earthy cabin. So the Aurora Borealis and the cozy cabin were the 2 palettes. So it was a rare instance where I was designing the shawl first, and then I selected the yarn to make the perfect shawl palettes. Usually I start with yarn first, and then I design the shawl. But this, I was just so obsessed with that slip stitch pattern, and I needed these perfect winter-inspired color stories. So Life in the Long Grass really turned it out with these perfectly harmonious 5 contrasting colors, solids and some speckles, and I love how there's tones that are referenced in other colorways. So that bright green and blue and purple brings all those colors together, and this is what you get with the Aurora Cabin Shawl. So this is the shawl pattern that's in the book, and this is the warm, cozy cabin palette. So these are also custom colors that Life in the Long Grass dyed for us, and this is for you warm color lovers. If you like the warm tones and browns with a little bit of gold and a blush, really subtle pink tone, then this is going to be a really nice, warm, cozy palette for you for the Aurora Cabin Shawl. And this one's a big one. So I did include in the pattern an early bind-off option. So if you want to customize your chevron border and knit fewer rows or knit more repeats, if you have other colors you want to add, you can customize the border. But if you just bind off early before doing that border, you could have a really nice, smooth, straight edge. But yeah, go for the chevrons. That's the finishing touch to make it a really extra special size. So the Aurora Cabin Shawl, it's all slip stitches and stripes, so there's no brioche. So it's all easy. The only thing is I'll be sharing a video tutorial for this pattern to show you the color work. So when you're doing that slip stitch, you have 5 colors. If you keep all 5 colors attached, that might be a bit too much to handle, so you can break your yarn. So it's up to you if you want to carry your yarns along the edge, or if it makes it easier for you to break your yarns, then I would go that route and do the weave in Steven. Weave in your ends as you go. But I'm so happy with this shawl, and then I designed a whole outfit full of sweaters and hats and accessories to go with the winter cozy knitting theme. So I took that slip stitch from the Aurora Cabin Shawl, and you're going to find the Aurora Cabin hat in the book. And I did 3 color palettes. I just love when I come up with a different stitch pattern, I just get really obsessed with a new technique. So with this exaggerated slip stitch mixed with all these colors, I wanted to see it in neutrals and in this weird minty blue and red neutral combination. But my favorite, I think, is this green. I used our Westwool Norway colorway as the main color and little scraps and leftovers for the contrast colors. You don't need very much per color, so you can use a 50-gram ball or even get away with like 20 or 30 grams of leftover DK or worsted weight yarns. And I mixed it up. There's some Walk DK, some Mominoki DK, and some Spin Cycle Dream State. That's more of a worsted yarn, but say yes, don't stress. Mix it all up, and you can have a fun stash-busting hat to coordinate with your shawl. So that's the Aurora Cabin hat, and it has a really big folded brim too. So it's thick and warm, a fun gift, and something fun for you to make that someone will appreciate, having a practical warm hat, but you're the one that has to knit it, okay? So pick colors that you like. Even if they request neutrals, like mix in a color pop with the neutrals. You know, don't make it too boring for yourself. If you're the one knitting for people and getting the book as a gift or knitting anything from the book as a gift, like, you gotta prioritize yourself, okay? Because if you're not loving the colors, they might like looking at it, but they're never gonna get a hat if you're not inspired by the colors. So you gotta color compromise with those gift recipients. So after that Aurora Cabin hat, I went into my painting series, and I loved the Painting Columns shawl from my Painting Shawls book. So I took that stitch pattern, the slip stitch column, and I made a scarf and a cowl and a hat and a sweater and a jacket and socks. So I made a whole outfit because it's such an easy stitch pattern, and I just love how graphic and linear and easy it is, and it's a really good stitch pattern to organize your colorful leftovers. So here's another hat. This is also DK or worsted weight, and this one doesn't have a folded brim. It's more of a beanie style hat, but if you want to knit the brim longer, I would just use that main color and knit like twice as long as you want the brim to be, and then when you fold it up, you could have a double thick brim. Or just knit it like I did and have this scrappy Painting Columns hat. So I had a lot of these colors that I loved in my DK weight yarn bucket. So this is how the projects start. When you're picking any of these Painting Columns projects from the book, you want to look at your DK weight yarns, but also put some worsted weight yarns into the mix. For me, they're the same. Yes, worsted weight is technically a little thicker, but it doesn't matter. They work on the same needle size, and then you just get more color options. So DK, worsted weight yarns. If you want to hold fingering weight double, can you do that? If you've done anything with me before, you know the answer is yes. So use what you have, and that's the whole spirit of these Painting Columns patterns, is using your stash, getting cozy, bury yourself in yarn all winter, and don't wake up until you've knitted all the patterns from the book. So that might take you a few months to knit everything, because there's some big projects in here too, but it's a good excuse to stay at home and put some music on, light a candle, get a hot drink, and knit a cozy cowl. So this is the Painting Columns cowl, and it's my favorite cowl shape, where it's knit in the round and as a tube, and then you just seam the tube together right there on that seam line. And I increase and decrease the fabric to taper it, so it rises in the back to form this cozy hood. So it makes this really cozy hood for biking, or you could fold it down, but it's double thick, and the slip stitch pattern makes the fabric a bit thicker too. So it's a really structural cowl, and definitely for those cold winter snowy days. So I just love this cowl shape because it's reversible, it stays up, it's really structural, and it's easy to knit in the round. Just keep knitting. There's some slip stitches and a little bit of purling, but it's mostly all knit, and you can customize the colors. So I made this cowl to match my hat and a scarf. So there's a really simple rectangle scarf, And I don't do that many rectangle shapes because I love shawls and I just love increasing and making these huge, constantly growing shawls. But sometimes you need just something really simple. And I think as a gift, a lot of people, when they want a scarf or a shawl as a gift, they don't need it so fancy. So just let it be all about the colors. And I think this could be a really cute kid's scarf as well. It's really like a crayon box of colors, and you could have your son, daughter, your kiddo pick out the colors. Maybe they could draw a little coloring book or draw a painting, and then you could get colors from that painting and make a scarf inspired by your kids' color choices. So that would be really fun to customize this scarf, and it's all trimmed with I-cord edges. One thing I was thinking about when you're putting your color combos together for the painting columns patterns, you have a main color, contrast color. I'm thinking about contrast. So as you're putting your color combos together, if you want that crispy effect, really high contrast, then always mix a light with a dark. And then if your light main color was in one section, then try a dark main color for the next section. That'll give you a really crisp, staggered, punchy effect. If this is a little too bold and in your face and you want something a little more subtle, more sophisticated and calm, then you can go for a more shadowy effect and maybe mix a gray with blue, and then maybe that blue with another shade of blue or green. So you could go with more subtle combinations or different shades of neutrals. So it doesn't always have to be a light and a dark or a pop and a neutral. So you can tone it down by putting two dark colors together. And that would be a more subtle mix. Or two similar tones in the same color family as your main color contrast color. And that would give you a more soft, shadowy effect. So just have that in mind, what kind of vibe you're looking for. You could always do a swatch, and I would just knit the painting columns hat and just get your colors and call the hat your swatch. And that's a good opportunity to play with your color palette. And you could use your hat swatch as a guide for the needle size and colors for your scarf or to make a sweater. So this is the sweater I made with my leftover DK and worsted weight yarns. And it makes me so happy because it's like a souvenir sweater. It's all these yarns throughout the years from festivals or gifts from friends, and a couple new yarn purchases, because that makes me just as happy as getting a gift from a friend, as getting my yarn fix at the yarn shop. So there's a couple new colors, but it's mostly all leftover stash yarns using single skeins. So I was always changing colors. Sometimes I would mix a color from one section and use that similar color again later. So there's a few times that happens. So it's not all totally random, but it's a big rainbow color palette. And I wanted a mix of color pops, but lots of neutrals too. And I think that's something in my color palettes that I find works really well when you're working with so many colors, is embrace all those bright pops. And you might need even more colors than you think you need. So get a lot of colors just to have as backups, but mix in some neutrals. And I really love embracing browns and grays as your neutrals because it gives space for those color pops to shine. Sometimes when I put all my color pops together, it can get a little chaotic and too much. Sometimes I like too much, but for this, I wanted a little bit of space between the color pops, and those neutrals were my best friend. So really happy. This is one of the larger sizes in the pattern. There's 9 sizes, so you can choose between the 9 sizes, but customize the length. So it's a really easy pattern to just add another column or another 2 columns to your body or to your sleeves to make it shorter or longer. So just stop early or keep on going for the painting column sweater. Top down, try it on as you go. I'm wearing the painting column sweater in a blue-green palette. This one's with Undercover Otter Eventide, so it is okay to use the same yarn for your whole sweater, and it's going to look amazing, or you could do a Stash Busty version. So in this book, I showed a lot of different color palettes, so each design, most designs have 1 or 2 extra color palettes for you to see how it looks. And this was another color palette that was like some neutrals, but mostly the blues and the greens. But I mixed a little bit of neutral in there. But because there were so many colors I wanted to use, I kept it in a color family. There's about 7 total colors, but because they're all blues and greens, it gives this overall vibe of a nice wintry, sprucey, blue-green palette. So I didn't want to inject anything too different. So I kept this palette a little more focused. So let me know if you're getting some sweater ideas. If you're going to go like a pink and purple sweater, or I think a yellow and orange warm fiery palette would be really nice. Let me know if you're going to go like in a focused color palette, or do you like the rainbow, scrappy, neutrals with a pop kind of color story. So I'm real excited to see where you take this sweater, because again, it's like a souvenir sweater. So you can really focus on those yarns you've been collecting, or it's an excuse to get a new souvenir. Get a little holiday treat for yourself at the yarn shop. So to go with the painting column sweater, there's an open piece, an open jacket, cardigan style. And I use this construction in a few of my other designs, like the painting honeycombs jacket, and this one features the column slip stitch pattern. So the painting columns jacket is a really big, oversized style. It's very boxy, and it's knit sideways. So if you want to knit this jacket, you're going to start at the sleeve and work your way to the underarm, and then you cast on and you knit the front and the back separately. And you can easily customize that width by adding an extra column repeat or stopping. And I give you a lot of notes on some guidance on how to customize the width. So there's 3 sizes to use as a framework during this pattern, which are these 3 sleeve circumferences that you start with. And then from there, there's notes that guide you on how to make your sleeve a little shorter, or how to make your body a little longer if you want it more oversized. But also check out my test knitter photos. There's a lot of test knitters that made this in some beautiful color palettes, so you can see how this jacket works on different sizes and body types. I'm wearing the middle size, the second size in the pattern for my big boxy version. But it's a really customizable pattern. And one thing you could do to the front is add buttons if you want. So I left my front garter stitch panel open, so it's an easy throw on, throw off piece for knitting on the couch. But I think if you add some I-cord loops and some toggles, that could be a nice closure. Or you could pre-plan and add some 1-row buttonholes during the garter stitch button band if you want. But I think some toggle closures would be really cool to customize that feature. The final pattern in the book is a sock pattern. This year has been my year of socks and calling myself a sock knitter, and that's all it took to become a sock knitter. You just gotta say you're a sock knitter and make a pair of socks. And I did it, and I didn't stop. So I feel like socks are the shawls of the feet. So I have a shawl for every day of the year, so I gotta work on a pair of socks for every day of the year. I've always wanted a sock drawer, like rolled up socks in a drawer, and right now my drawer looks very sad because I just have a few pairs, but I'm making more. And I just added this to my sock drawer, the painting column socks, and it's a really good scrappy, stash busty shawl for the foot. I need a pin or something that says that, the shawls of the feet. So I love socks because they use the same shawl yarn, but well, technically my shawls use sock yarn. Yeah. My whole knitting world is turned upside down because I had all this sock yarn that I used for my shawls, and now I'm looking at it as what it was truly intended for. So I have all this sock yarn, my leftover shawl yarn, so I've been making these leftover scrappy socks. And again, it's really fun, just like the sweater, to get a bucket of colors and just say yes and use all the colors, or dump it out on the floor. You're hiberknitting, so you don't have to leave the house. So make your house a mess and put yarn everywhere, wherever your dogs aren't or your cats aren't. Yeah, an enclosed space in your home that's pet-free. Put the yarns on the floor and make these color palettes, or put little bowls of yarn throughout your house as decoration. You know, mix it into your holiday decor and have little yarn balls and dishes, and put all your blues together and have some blue painting column socks. Or make a really bright, splashy rainbow. I think this would be really fun. Putting all the brights together. So you can do 5 sizes. There's 5 sizes of the socks, and every single column section uses 2 new colors. So you can easily customize and knit top down, and you could do another column repeat to make the leg longer. You could do 1 repeat less for a shorter foot. So easy to customize, just knit more stripes or more pattern repeats, and you can make the sock fit you perfectly. And I featured a garter stitch heel flap. That's been my go-to heel that my friend Linda taught me, and it's the easiest heel, and I just love that texture that the garter stitch adds against those garter ridges in the columns pattern. So I did stockinette on the bottom of the foot so it's nice and smooth, and the rest of the sock has the fun column motif. So you've got some socks, you have a shawl to keep you warm, a sweater, throw on the jacket over the sweater, and you don't need anything else for the winter. Hats, cowl, scarf, all bundled up. So I hope you'll stay warm and get some inspiration from this book. All of these books are going to be included in our Hiberknitalong kits that we're doing this year. So we're gonna do a knit-along for the shawl. So if you would like a little bit of encouragement and some extra support to knit and finish your shawl, we're gonna cast on December 26th. And you can use any yarn you want or get a kit from Stephen and Penelope to knit the shawl. And all the other projects from the book, I wanna see what color palettes you choose. So I'd love to hear down in the comments if you have a favorite pattern from the book. Are you just taken away by the shawl, or are you gonna do a big jacket? It's been a while since I've done a big, huge cardigan jacket. So let me know which project you're gonna cast on first. The socks, the shawl, a jacket. The hat is the easiest. So if you're looking for the quickest, easiest, do the hat and think of it as a swatch to do the other projects in the book, because they all use the same yarn weight, except the shawl is fingering weight. So let me know what you're gonna make, and you can get that book individually as well at stephenandpenelope.com. You can get the ebook only on Ravelry or westknits.com, and all the individual patterns that I just showed you. And every print book has a digital ebook download code. So in the back inside cover, when you open the page, I won't show this one, but it's right here where my hand is covering. You'll get a download code. And this is my technical support squad standing by, Brioche and Stitch. They're waiting to hear your questions or what your favorite pattern is. So let us know, comment down below. Their ears are perked up and waiting to hear what color palettes you're gonna put together. Well, that should keep you busy this winter. 8 patterns, they're all in the Hiberknitting 3. Let me know which one is your favorite, and happy Hiberknitting.